Gary Lineker's suspension from BBC for, of course, his political tweets was one of the more interesting storylines in recent football memory that was coming out of course, the Premier League. And it's pretty funny in one way because it really has nothing to do with the football, but rather a host of a very popular show. The good news is, however, that the impasse that saw Gary Lineker step down from Match of the Day for 1 week has now come to an end at long last, and football fans will be able to see Gary Lineker do what he do best, and that is, of course, present a show that many people, even those around the world, enjoy watching for the lighthearted banter, analysis, and of course, the match highlights. Lineker has in fact taken to social media to confirm that, even after BBC themselves confirmed it along with a joint statement from Lineker. But the interesting thing to note in Lineker's tweets is that he did seem to be taking some subtle digs not only at a lot of his critics, but for that matter even at the BBC themselves, because, well, the whole point of him actually getting suspended in the first place was his political tweets, and he couldn't help himself and actually included a reference to the kind of political tweets that he was making, very directly, I may add. So let's just check out what it is he has to say, and I'll tell you why it is I feel, as I said, it's a rather subtle take. First off, he says that after a surreal few days, I'm delighted that we have navigated a way through this. I want to thank you all for the incredible support, particularly my colleagues at the BBC Sport for their remarkable show of solidarity. Football is a team game, but their backing was overwhelming. Now that, of course, is in reference to the fact that the likes of Ian Wright and Alan Shearer, who are of course his regular guests on Match of the Day, also chose not to step in and do the show because, well, they also wanted to show solidarity to Lineker, who they felt was being rather unfairly targeted. He goes on, because this was a 4-tweet thread. He says, I have been presenting sport on the BBC for almost 3 decades, and I'm immeasurably proud to work with the best and fairest broadcaster in the world. I cannot wait to get back in the MOTD chair on Saturday. There's your confirmation. This Saturday, he's going to be back on BBC Match of the Day as if nothing has ever happened. Although that best and fairest broadcaster thing does seem like a bit much, but you can understand him being happy that he's finally being able to do something that he's done really, really well for over 2 decades at this point. Now to the points where I said he was taking digs at not only the BBC, but also his critics. Here's what he has to say in the next part of his tweets. He said, a final thought. However difficult the last few days have been, it simply doesn't compare to having to flee your home from persecution or war to seek refuge in a land far away. It's heartwarming to have seen the empathy towards their plight from so many of you. Well, remember, the reason he was in all this trouble to begin with was because he was critical of the English government's policy towards immigrants and shutting borders altogether, or rather not necessarily immigrants, but war refugees. And what he said is that, look, I know the last few days have been difficult on me, but if you compare it to the plight of those who have to flee their homeland, then really it's not that, difficult at all. And he said that I've been really happy to see the empathy that a lot of y'all have shown in response. He ends, and this is why, this is the part where I was mentioning is a dig at BBC, because he's just gotten back from that suspension and he's still referencing his own politics in some way or the other. He ends the entire thread with, we remain a country of predominantly tolerant, welcoming and generous people. Thank you. We remain a country of predominantly tolerant, welcoming and generous people. Wow. Nice way of actually putting down the people or the critics who said that, you know what, Gary, you should just stick to sports. You don't need to be talking about politics. Why are you being critical? Yada-da. Says no. It's nice to see that so many people have actually agreed with the point I put across, and that we remain still a country of predominantly generous, welcoming and warm people. So that really is, the final part of it. And for me, that did seem like a bit of a dig at his critics, who, as I said, were oftentimes mentioning to him that, hey, maybe you should just stick to sport. No one wants to hear about politics. Of course, those same people will also have had no problem with Lineker himself talking politics during the entirety of the FIFA World Cup, where, of course, he was instructed implicitly by the BBC to actually criticize the Qatari government's policies. Now, I'm not saying what Lineker was doing back then or what he's doing now, right, wrong, that's a big debate, but consistency is key, and hopefully with this entire Lineker debacle behind them, there will be more consistency from the BBC and of course from Lineker himself. I think we can expect him to still be the same person he's always been on social media. He loves a bit of banter, he loves some politics, and what's more, he also loves a lot of football. Thankfully, he'll be able to talk that best, and all we can hope now is that this entire debacle is behind us, and that we can see Lineker doing what he does best, presenting the football on a regular basis. Thank you all so much for joining us in this particular video. If you enjoy our work, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment. How glad are you that this is all done with? Follow us also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, download the AajTak app, and don't forget, if you're already on the channel, go ahead and check out some other videos that we've done too. For now though, from my side, goodbye.